Hello and welcome back to the Euphoria podcast. This is episode first. We're going. We're going to continue with it.
You got the season.
I already swore. They're going to love this episode. They love editing this episode. Shout out to Liz, who edits our swears. I did. Shout out to Liz. We love Liz at this podcast. Edits all of our swears.
This start of the podcast is like EU at MSI. It's just a train wreck.
It's just instant train wreck, baby.
Instant open season.
Straight to the LCK best of five,
can we remake
baby.
it?
Nope. This is it.
Yo, his cookies are bugged. I think we need to remake it.
Can we hurry up here? Uzi's playing. I'd like to go watch Uzi's.
That's funny. I wrote this intro for you. One sec. This is Euphoria Podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, SoundCloud. This is the first episode of the Summer Split. Yeah, so it's hype, but
that was the intro you wrote down?
No, I just wanted to clarify that it's a summer split because we're not, like, we used to just call every new split a new season, and we're not doing that anymore, so I wanted to specify this first episode start of summer. And I wrote this for you. I wrote a blurb that lines up perfectly with what you said. Dagda, our special guest, who feels a little less special every time he realizes he left the strongest region in the world. Do you think that's fair? Do you feel less special?
Yeah.
You stand up.
It's not
and
a little
like,
less. It's just gone now. After MSI, I was like, look, I just got to revel in that LEC aren't as good as JDG.
Welcome to our international ravens. Like, you guys were like, oh, semis, finals, fine. We're like, semis? Finals? What?
I'll take 2 games in the best of 5.
I'll take a game.
We got a game. We two got a game.
True.
Give me a game longer than 20 minutes at this point.
Give me a game longer than 17.
Anyway, if you, for whatever reason, missed MSI, that's a weird hierarchy of priorities. I think most people like internationals the most, but like respect, that's some LEC dedication at least. Don't go back and watch it. We did great. It was fantastic. They gave us our own special trophy that no one else knows about, and you can live. If you didn't watch any MSI, I want you to believe that in the same way that you believed all of those. I don't know who does and doesn't believe about the holiday figures, and I'm trying to be vague here. The man in the red suit. I don't want to spoil anyone because I don't know if people's kids listen to this. Damn, I have to back up now.
Okay, quick thing I was going to say. The thing I was going to say is, can you imagine being an LEC fan but never watching international events? You're watching the finals. You're like, oh damn, Mad Lions, what a great showing. I'll wait for summer.
Yeah.
Oh, summer's back. Let's see how Mad Lions. You're like your brain just has never really clocked any international events or international success whatsoever. You just only watch domestics.
Yeah.
I ran into a dude like at a bar who only watches LFL.
I thought this was a joke.
No, genuinely. Like, he doesn't watch LEC, doesn't watch any internationals, only watches LFL.
That sounds.
I was like, that is commitment.
But that also sounds sick.
That's a good. I was like, Dagda walks into a bar. That's what I thought this was going.
I mean, I'm an Irishman. It kind of happens a fair amount, to be honest.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds like the equivalent of like being homeschooled and your parents just don't teach you about the bad parts of the world. Yeah. You're just like,
you don't have the news. You don't have anything.
Wow, humanity's doing great. Everything is wonderful.
Look at all this literature and science.
Yeah, and then every time we go to internationals, we step outside and we're like, oh god, everything's on fire. Everything is bad.
Fire. The problem is we can't put the fires out, can we? It's been years. Yeah. It's been years.
We didn't start the fire. We are definitely fuel for the fire for Korea and China, definitely.
No, we're just food.
We're food.
It's like Hunger Games are out here. We're Hunger Games are out here with like a piece of paper and some chopsticks or something. I don't know. They're running around with bows and shotguns.
Yeah, it's like the start of... I actually realized I had never watched the Hunger Games, so now I can finally reference the Hunger Games.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're the people who run out of the circle to hide in the forest. They run in to pick up the swords and just start slaughtering people. Like, we are not the same.
G2's got a water pistol. They got a game.
Yeah, like a water pistol. Like, they have trained their entire life for the Hunger Games. We are just poor farmers who have been sent in to die.
Help.
Anyway, yeah. So MSI was rough. That was a bit over dramatic, I think, for how bad it was. But it's definitely. There's a very clear divide. There's a very big gap. I think EU fans, you can hold on to hope that when NA and EU, if ever, get to play a best of 5 against each other, which we're guaranteed one at Worlds, that we'll see if there's a gap between NA and EU. But the gap between the East and the West is big and alive and very hard to cross.
Well, if you think about it, BLG beat T1 3-1.
Yeah.
And they beat Gen G 3-0. And they beat G2 3-1. So technically, on paper, we're as good as the LCK.
The transitive property does us a lot of favors.
We just got to keep on to that. The second we start doing worse in series against similar teams, then we can start seeing it. But till then, we got something to hold on to.
Yeah.
So there's the positivity we can go with.
Well, weren't Golden Guardians closer to beating BLG?
No, don't worry about that.
Because they played in a best of 3.
I don't remember that.
That's true.
Did that happen?
You know what? I don't think it did.
No,
it doesn't count. That doesn't
Wow.
count. Yeah.
We just made some propaganda. That never happened.
That was earlier on in the tournament.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
That was a couple days too
They
early.
weren't trying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're fine.
Yeah, we're fine. We're chilling. The good news is, if you are an LCK and LPL enjoyer, they've been playing a ton of games happening, and you've been able to take a look at our thrilling new meta. 80 carry items have been completely reworked. There's so many great changes. They did absolutely nothing to pro play, and it's the exact same champions you watched all of MSI.
But they build slightly different.
But the builds are slightly different, and Neeko exists. And God bless Neeko. You know, Neeko is the Atlas in this story, like holding up the world on her shoulders. The literal only new interesting champ to watch in the entire meta turns into a plant like she is trying her best to keep League of Legends fresh and interesting.
People are cooking with Neeko. We already saw like people on mid-waves with the minions. You already saw like the Yagao clip where they're doing Baron and he's pretending to be a Scryer's boom and then he kills Ari. That was class. So yeah, I'm waiting for the time that like you like flash over a wall and turn into a ward or something, and then it looks like someone warded over the wall. You know, like how deep can this get?
How deep can
how deep can the lore go on the Neeko? Like the blast cone tech we need to see as well. We've seen the Scryer's bloom tech. I give it a year of Neeko and we're gonna get some crazy plays.
Can you?
You know what I hate the most before you can. On Reddit, every day I open Reddit, it's like, Neeko insane backdoor. All I see is this guy turn into a creep, run through the jungle, run past a bronze 80 carry as a singular creep. Doesn't even clock that he's there. And then he just starts hitting the Nexus. And then I'm just like, like, how does that happen? It's just one minion running past through the gates. And I'm like, huh?
But like, to be fair to the Bronzies and any player out there, you spent your entire life watching like minions just wander around, like a Rise ult will send a minion in the wrong lane. You have never once had to be scared of minions in your entire league career outside of like Super's going to finish you off in a 1v1 at level 3.
You know what it's like?
And now every single one could just absolutely ruin you.
It's like balloons. It's one red balloon, right? I'll lose 1 HP. It's fine. One minion can go past me. That's their thought process. No. It's an ultra mega balloon. It's the massive, gigantic zombie boy.
You can't see.
I mean, my brother has managed to gank. Like I was playing games with him, managed to gank people as red buff, and they're just like, "Oh, this is fine." It's red buff's just in my lane for some reason. Like no one got used to it at the start.
Years of League of Legends bugs have taught us wrong for this moment. Is there a Syndra in my game? Maybe she just threw red buff, and it's kind of just like wandering through my lane for some reason. Like that's happened to me before. You know, on its weird path back to resetting. No, it's Neeko, and she's there to kill you.
Knight on JDG has been having a lot of fun with Neeko. He's been like turning into blue buffs, running down the lanes, just being a funny guy, walking around as wards as well. Yeah, nothing's like a mount to anything yet, but you gotta cook and you gotta see what happens.
I also just think it's sick BM if you can kill someone and then turn into just like a minion and dance on them, or a blue buff.
The blue buff has a dance. Knight was dancing in mid lane as blue buff.
Yeah, creeps have dances. I don't know if people knew this before Neeko or if this got added with Neeko. I'm not enough of an expert, but you can dance as...
It's because when you play the 1v1 map and you win and the poros explode, everyone dances, don't they? And I think the creeps dance as well on that Aram Howling Abyss 1v1
Yeah,
map.
but there's no red buff there, so they wouldn't have needed to add a dancing animation. Maybe it's for Sona. Sona alt used to make people dance. I can't remember.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it... Does it target minions? I think it's only champions.
I can't remember if it's minions too. Bro, I don't know. Anyway, they have dancing animations. They're cute. I want to turn into a chicken. That's my favorite. When you just cosplay wolves. Because I used to do that in ranked games anyway, where you just kill wolves and hide in wolf pit when you're like absolutely guaranteed to lose a game. And then just pray someone face checks you. But now you can do it as a wolf.
Interesting. In High Challenger, Season 7 throughout Season 10, the way you make the game open was you killed Gromp, stood at Gromp, and said, "I'm Gromp, good luck." I'm not kidding. That was a classic. You want to open? You are Gromp. That means you want to open. So now you can actually be Gromp.
I'm just saying they never see it coming. Unless you type in all chat that I'm Gromp and you're griefing people.
Yes. Good law. Good law.
Oh my God. Never mind. This is not the day for this story. I can tell you the story about the time I got banned. I wasn't being toxic. It was a misunderstanding. We can talk about it another time. Anyway, here's the thing. LEC, you may have noticed there's an official tweet, just because make sure that I get the wording right here, from Artem, who is the LEC commissioner on Twitter. Regular season for LEC, a lot of people want to know if it's going to be 13-12 or 13-11. It is 13-11 with Rel and Ivern disabled, switching to 13-13, starting with the group stage and until the split final. So we will not touch 13-12 at all.
So we're not going to touch the Zeri nerfs.
Yep.
So we're not going to touch the Yuumi nerfs.
No.
So we're going to have...
Yeah.
So the reason that I hope that you like the LPL LCK meta is because it's also the LEC meta. So, I mean, if you are kind of tired of the meta, I think everybody is, and that sentiment has been shared. We had a tweet from Froxen as well talking about getting enchanters out of the meta, so clearly it's a work in progress to shift the meta into something completely new, but for at least the best of one stage, it's going to be very similar to what we saw in playoffs and very similar to what we saw at MSI. Now, there are some fringe picks and new champions coming through, but again, they are still very fringe, and I don't expect teams to put a lot of effort into breaking 13-11 when 13-12 will be, is it live? Yeah, I haven't played in like a week. 13-12, 13-13 are going to be where you're going to play the majority of your high stakes games.
I think the only thing about that patch then is if it's 13-11, there's no Zeri nerf, so that's probably going to be permaban.
Well, there's a small runes nerf. That's going to change everything, right?
Yeah, but there's also Aphelios nerfs.
Aphelios,
and
AD on
Jinx
Q
nerfs.
scaling, Jinx
And
attack
Kalista
speed
buffs.
scaling.
Kalista buffs.
The Kalista buffs
And
I'm
the Stormrazor
actually
nerfs.
excited for.
Yeah, so maybe what I expect then is Zeri's probably permabanned, and then we get some kind of like maybe Kai'Sa Kalista Xayah meta or something if Aphelios Jinx are out.
Kalista meta, comp a great Kalista player.
Draven will be really
I would
strong
want to
as well.
say it, but LPL are playing on 13-11 at the moment, and I'm just like, it's the exact same. There is no.
Okay, well.
There have been a few people who've tried Kog'Maw. I mean, like, look, I think you can expect it to be the exact same. And the thing is, it's not like our second most successful team last season was BDS, and they played this meta to a T. Like, this was their jam.
Yeah.
Outside of Nuclear and mid picks, they were like, give me more Aphelios. Give me more.
The only last piece of cooking I can maybe share is Rek'Sai got buffed.
Yeah.
And I saw Molecule tweet that a lot of LEC top laners are playing Rek'Sai top. Like 3 or 4 of them. So maybe Rek'Sai top is a tech. You do like 3 points Q max E or something. That's what the jungle.
Rek'Sai I would love. I would love.
Oh, and the buff sharing as well. You get red buff. Your jungler gets it. Your jungler gets red buff. You get it. Ivern passive basically.
Not at the start of the game, but after, is it?
I don't know.
Once you fully upgrade your smite.
That's what it was.
Okay,
Thank you.
Nice,
so
nice.
undetermined point in the game. But.
So that's the patch changes basically. Nothing too crazy, but it'll be quite similar. But I do think even though the LPL's on 13-11 with the Stormrazor nerfs and Aphelios Jinx nerfs, maybe they're just slow to adapt. Surely like MF or something can work, or Draven.
I think that we'll probably see the teams that like to cook more. I would put like Astralis, specifically leader in that camp, G2 in that camp. Maybe they try to break out. But again, for a team like BDS and for a lot of our teams, when you see you can play like Scion top lane, like CC setup mid laner, and like just scaling AD, that's not the hardest way to play the game. When you're just playing best of ones. Like, I think that's not a bad option.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams will go back towards. I think the only thing is like, the thing I appreciate about the LPL is they kind of just handshake and go, no Yuumi? Yeah? No one's going to play Yuumi? Because it's got like less than 50% like pick rate.
Yeah.
So I think the changes we'll see is like, we'll probably see more like LCK style where Yumi's super high prio with Zeri. And then, as you say, just go like mega tank top. Just do exactly what BDS did last year. Just go, hey, we're going tank top. We're just going to play facilitator mid, and then hyper carries bottom. We're going to be fine.
Kalista, Draven, I would
like
very excited for.
There's a couple things there. I was speaking to a few LEC pros about, because of the mid lane wave crash. After first wave, it's the same as sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
Diving bots become a bit harder on stacking waves, because normally you can kill mid wave and move as the wave's crashing if you can clear the wave quickly. So in the first 4 or 5 minutes, diving for mid becomes a bit harder. So it's more jungle orientated. So the Kalista lanes become a little bit harder to dive if you don't have that mid push, but I think it's still probably easily plausible. You're touching on Yuumi. LCK's got 100% presence on Yuumi, but it's got like a 30% win rate. So like the Zeri and the Yuumi is popping off, but the Yuumi win rate's still pretty low. And then on that Scion thing, you know how at MSI, because of the Scion level 1, top laners would like try and hide in the bot tier 1 and hope they dive and stuff like that? This new tech in Hanwha T1, it was like game 2 or something. What they did was they camped 3 or 4 men in a top rush, and the Scion ran through mid around the Raptor wall, and everyone was pinging him. Oh, no, they're Scion invading. Then their top laner runs in thinking he's going to ward their top side. 4 people, boom, first blood. So there's like all these small texts to stop the Sion level 1 that teams are coming up with. So I'm interested to see if BDS do it, the teams can react.
Small innovations, I think.
Yeah,
it's safe
small
to
innovations
say.
to try and crack
Room for creativity, certainly, but maybe not in the way that people were hoping for with how big the 80 carry itemization changes look.
Yeah, I think the problem that we're going to see is like what happened previously, which is just going to become an arms race, where it's like, how greedy can we be in the bot lane at the moment? Because it's just like, you can't really dive. Yes, you've got like TP change, so it's no longer like 40 minutes, it's unlocked. 10 minutes.
10 minutes,
So like technically you can play around bot lane a little bit early, but it's not really a thing. So I think it's like, all right, maybe we see like Cogmaws and Twitches and like hyper skaters come in. Yeah, into that bot lane. And I think you end up with this arms race where it's like, we're both going to go cool, we're just going to farm it out, and then we're just going to play for these late game fights. And then eventually it'll hit like a tipping point where then it's like, okay, you've gone too greedy. Now we're going to go Callista and Dravens and these kind of things and see if we can just go ham. Although Draven looks dumb as all hell with the Triforce. I'm like, Jesus, this hits.
Yeah, Draven does look strong. I don't know if was it the Damwon DRX game or something. The Draven was really fed, but it didn't do much. Right? I think that was the one Draven game where I was like, Deft, when is your damage coming out? But Pace was playing Twitch with Yuumi, and that looked really, really strong. I think when you get Yuumi on red side especially, and like Zeri's down, people look at Ezreal if you have like a really good Ezreal player like aiming on KT, but I think Twitch is like an easy facilitator. EU as well with Upset and Crowny. Twitch will be like definitely a high prio pick as well, I think. And Shen has also been played a little bit in solo queue by some top laners, so that could be another interesting way of playing the game. Shen kind of fell out because side lanes didn't really matter as much. If you watch MSI, every single like team fight, as much as the Eastern teams are so good at team fighting, what you'll see them do is like fight over mid waves for about 2 minutes before they go into river. Whereas Western teams were often trying to, when they would get one wave of mid push, they would try and catch someone on a side lane, and then they'll give up the mid push, and then they'll have bad position for Drake. I think that was like a big blunder the West had at MSI. So Shen kind of fell out because no one really could go side lanes. Everyone was just like mid wave, push, and it's like a slow chip to get them to their tier 2s. And then you have Dragon priority. Yeah.
And I feel like Shen historically, at least in recent years, not super far back, was a lot more about answering a lot of the side lane picks. And if those side lane picks already aren't really showing up, it's like Shen outvalues with double global, right? More often than not. And then and has a good matchup into things like Camille or anything else where he can really use the dodge. And it's just like, I have not liked Shen for a while. I would like to see it again. Seems good into an 80 carry centric meta. Obviously, like the Spirit's Refuge is really strong ability.
It's also just if you've got mega tanks and side lanes, it's like, all right, cool. Well, Shen doesn't really get pushed out of lane. He's totally fine to actually like start playing side lanes. He can still be present in team fights, right? So you've kind of got options then to start playing around them. So, I think we'll probably start to see it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then it'll be sick, but
yeah, there was a small TF buff, which I think could allude to the Shen, because Shen's like an answer to TF in a way.
Yeah.
Like Nocturne is also kind of an answer if you don't want to counterpick the lane. Like his W got buffed on TF, which is always nice. Like lower cooldown W means you can push the waves faster with red card and stuff.
But I think the AD TF that's doing the rounds.
I saw some like Triforce Renans, the on-hit TF that used to be with Emax on attack speed. The side lane menace where you just like TF side lane's so fun because you have so much attack speed, you just push. Someone comes, you just ult out. And if you're ulting out,
old Rise. It's just old Rise.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's 2 people, you can not only ult out, but you can ult to the people on midwave instead. And like it was so annoying.
So hope, it sounds like there is hope and room for innovation. The question is, will teams actually cook? And it's hard to say. Teams are generally a bit more reticent, but there have been a lot. Most of our teams didn't go to MSI, had time, more time, arguably or not arguably, certainly to play on these patches, to see if there's anything niche that they wanted to do. We'll see if it comes true.
Did you say Ivern disabled?
Ivern, Rel, both disabled. Yeah,
for like until group stage, so 3 weeks.
Yeah. Until the next patch.
Okay.
Okay. And I just assume that they will be enabled, but I don't know. Like, I'm not sure what the policy will be. Yeah, but presumably they'll be enabled.
Interesting.
I would be, I haven't played against a Rel yet. I haven't seen a single Rel yet, so.
I've seen people play it in solo queue and like Rel jungle. I think Malrang was playing it when I last looked, like a couple days ago.
Oh yeah, the buff to the
I also saw Jax jungle. Was Owner playing? Owner was playing Jax jungle. Malrang's been spamming Jax jungle in solo queue too with like the Triforce rush. I remember old Jax jungle in season 8 because I was playing when I roll swapped. Jax jungle was really OP because you would have like a Camille Trundle Zinzao meta. And what's the biggest counter to Camille's Trundle Zinzao? Those Jax.
I love how you played in one of the most messed up jungle metas. Like Camille, I forgot Camille was a jungler. I've been trying to burn that out of my mind. Funniest jungler I've ever seen. Loved it. One camp gank.
Red buff into and
red
invade.
Buff into just go.
But it was all auto attack based, like Camille, Zinzao, Trundle. And so Jax, you would go like Cinderhook into Triforce and you'd be pretty tanky. But now when I watch Owner play it, he rushes Triforce and then he gets one shot in a fight, and like they lost the game. Like he literally jumps in and just dies, and I'm just like, but it's like if you watch LEC often. I don't know if it's the same in the LPL, but they pick like Jax on 4 on red side or on 3, and they ban Gragas, and that's it. And then they leave a Jax flex. There was also Damwon flexed Sion on 4, and then played Sion jungle. And like I don't remember what they picked, but they picked like a carry top, and then they got counted with Gnar or something. Or they picked Cho'Gath, and they got counted with Gnar. Yeah. So like there's jungle right now. I think you can play a lot of things. Jax, Sion, Nautilus. We saw already as well in the LCK in this split. Volibear is rising. So the jungle meta will be spicy, I think.
Yeah. Shout out, one last thing, MSI. There was this stage activation where people were supposed to do champion impressions. And there were like 2 people and they were like chill. They like did like TF and Renata, and they like did a little strutty walk. Then a guy did Volibear. And God bless this dude. He like ran across the stage. You can't see him pantomime. Leapt onto the thrust, which is the part of the stage that sticks out, and did the Volibear dance in front of like 10K
what
people, like full on, knees on the ground, arms back, absolute rock star. Did not get his name. Love that guy forever. Awesome. Favorite human at MSI. Easy peasy. That
God,
said,
so cool.
Gonna channel that same energy as we shift topics here. There were some roster changes. For the first time this season, we actually had a bit of an off season, winter to spring, fake off season, 0 time. Every team gets a chance to reset, less so for the MSI teams, but every other team does. And we had, I want to start on what I find to be kind of the weirdest change of the entire off season, and that is the swap of Advienne and Trymbi between Koi and Fnatic. How do you go? This is so bizarre to me. What do you guys think? How do you feel about this?
I'll give my quick thoughts because I was talking about this a few days ago. So Advienne for Trymbi is a really surprising trade. When you watch the Koi roster announcement video, they said that they had like they allude to like personal problems or like clashes in the team because they were together for so long. Mm-hmm. So that I understand that it's like it's a buildup of. I think your temper gets a lot shorter when you're with someone for so long and they do the same things over and over. You're kind of like, please, a lot of baggage. So that frees up a lot of baggage. So the Koi atmosphere will be better. I think Trymbi's a better player than Advienne on paper. But if you look at the way the meta is shifting in like a melee support direction, later on, Koi should be favorites with Advienne. Yeah. But I think when Trymbi is reinvigorated and reignited, I think he is like one of the best supports in Europe. So right now, I favor Fnatic, I think.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, though, for Advienne as well is like Advienne is a voice in a team.
Yeah,
and I think Koi have kind of got stuck in their ways a little bit, where they don't really know how they want to try and play a mid game. So I think if you have someone who's going to offer a bit more of a voice and try and change that, I think it'll actually do well for them. Because I think Koi on paper like are super strong players, but every time I look at their mid game, it's like, well, maybe they can full collapse in a side lane and catch someone, but if that doesn't work out, they just kind of wander around like headless chickens. So I think this will actually give them a bit of a boost. So I think it's nearly kind of mutually beneficial in a way where you kind of get the shot caller a bit more that you wanted, or at least a different voice in the team in Koi. And then as you say for Fnatic, Trymbi's a phenomenal support, so it's just a win-win there.
And I think that the one thing we can say about Advienne, because I agree that on paper Trymbi is a better player, and Trymbi at his peak certainly has shown us some significantly higher highs than we have ever seen from Advienne, and hopefully Advienne can continue to show us more. But we've had him on the podcast, we've talked to him at length, and Advienne is a guy who has a very, very clear idea of what he wants in a team environment, how he wants to be communicating with people, and I think that is a big strength, and is not something that we've always heard talking to Koi players in the past. So I think you're right, like that could be a big buff. I think there is evidence to support that, but I guess it's just kind of a time will tell.
I think a lot of people are kind of like, why the hell would Koi do that? Why the hell would you lose Trymbi? But if you look at even in Mad Lions, Humanoid was the mid game voice. Like he would shot call side lanes and everything, and they always said in Mad Lions that he was a huge voice. And if Trymbi's not a big voice and he wants to take a step back, then that's great for him. Like he can just play his range supports. I think Trymbi's a better laner. Like he will just play range supports, push you in, and get advantages there. And if he can be less vocal and listen to Humanoid, win-win. Similar for Koi, if you want someone with a voice and you want someone who's going to play only engaged supports and try to dictate your game, it's a win for you as well. And he also fixes your environment, which seems to be a problem. So to be honest, I think the trade makes a lot of sense for both teams.
I think people forget because like on paper it's a downgrade for Koi. But I think the thing that we've learned across this entire year, and certainly on this podcast, is it's just like the team environment and people clicking is everything. And it's doubly or triply true this year, especially because the splits are so short that like one bad fight in your team can tank an entire season.
And I mean, look, I'm going to dip into LPL a little bit, but like if you look at V5 back in 2020, that team, like on paper, they were awful. Like they didn't have anyone that was a standout player whatsoever, unless you're Lyric and it was Mole. But apart from that, it's like nothing on this team should have really worked. And then suddenly they just like, the atmosphere was fantastic. They all got on really well. Like in interviews, you could see how well they were doing. And then that was what made the difference. And then they nearly had that run that got them to Worlds. Like it was an insane thing.
Was that with Rookie?
No, this was before that. This was
Rookie?
I can't remember the top laner, but it was way,
my
Mole, PP God, and I think it was Photon back at the time. Photic, back at the time.
Damn. How did do you know how their environment changed? Was there a player change?
Complete team, like basically brand new players across the board.
They just 5-man swapped everyone?
Yeah. Oh no, was it Y4 back in the day? Was it finger guns? I don't know. But anyway, it was like, sorry, every photo of this man
because I have not kept up with enough niche LPL knowledge, so you could just be saying anything.
Let me just double check.
You're like, it was
oh,
like
dude, it was
Monsters Inc. in the bottom lane, and like Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away. Full name, have to say the title. So
but
that's too niche. I know top 4. I just know top 4.
Yeah, no, same. I had the same thing before I started coaching LPL, but then ever since I've been streaming for the last few years, I'm like, oh yeah, dude, OMG, LGD, oh yeah, their rise to fame, the way they're like
OMG are sick, man.
Yeah, OMG are crazy. But yeah, I think environment changes like.
So positive trade on both sides.
Like individual skill has dwindled a lot. Superstars have dwindled a lot. Like you look at BDS as a great example. Astralis, first and second last split. Everyone thought they were going to be CD tier. We did as well at the start of the year.
Oh, yeah,
individuals on standouts on paper, but they click, they find one meta, boom, all works. So hopefully Advienne can bring that all together for them.
Yeah. And more on the Fnatic side, of course, Noah now coming in. So Reckless gone. Joining us on the broadcast this weekend, though. Woo! Reckless. Didn't have a great split in either case with either support. So for Fnatic, they're to me the big winners of the offseason. You got champion support in Trymbi. You got a promising new AD carry. Your top side has looked pretty good. Oscar Innen, I think, still is like a work in progress, but he's a young player, and I think that's reasonable. And Razork and Humanoid, when they're performing, are excellent. So again, this is on paper, but this Fnatic lineup, I think, has some pretty high highs.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just the fact that you actually have a lane you can play around. Because Noah coming in, he was on zero tenacity. But the big thing was his team was not great. Like, they didn't really know how to team fight. Every single lane was losing, except from the bottom lane. And the bottom lane actually genuinely did look legit. And I think if they'd learned how to team fight a little bit better and play around Noah, they actually could have gone way further in EU Masters. But obviously didn't work out for him. But it's still, I think, coming into this, the fact you now have Trymbi paired with him when he's quite aggressive in the lane and can actually like try and win out on bottom lane, which seems to be a lot more about the way this meta is going. I think this will go fantastic for them. And then you can actually just start to play around them in team fights and, I mean, do your thing. So I think it definitely gives them a little bit more control in the mid game.
100% agree. 100%. Reckless was always a player which, I mean, if you look at the reason the G2 roster didn't work in 2021 was because they didn't have a side to play towards. You had Wunder top, who was like sacrificing. You had Reckless bot, who was sacrificing. And then it's only for caps, and they can't really win the game just through mid every game.
Yeah.
And I think the similar thing happens kind of this year as well. This winter and spring with, I mean, top side had a lot of pressure. Oscar would play games with like Jace and get like a couple kills, but the map was already lost because they're kind of forced to play top side in a bot-centric meta. And I think the bot-centric meta stuck for the last few years already. So when you have someone like Noah and Trymbi, who are, I mean, Noah was like rank 1, one of the best ADs in the league. His numbers are through the roof. Yeah. And then you have Trymbi, who's one of the best laning supports we have in terms of enchanters. That's an easy lane to play towards. So I think it's a huge upgrade for Fnatic.
And shout out to Noah as a new player in our league. Follow him on Twitter. Super active. These like every time you have players who come in and there's a language barrier, you see two different kinds of players. You see the players who are like really shy and really nervous about making mistakes and not wanting to come off or risk sounding stupid in a language that is not their own. And so far from what we've seen on Noah, Noah's not concerned. Noah's out here to talk his shit, like regardless of the language barrier, and that kind of personality and that kind of confidence, I love to see anytime a player enters a region where they don't speak the native language. I think that's sick.
Yeah, and I think he kind of needs that as well, especially when in team, because a lot of what was happening with Fnatic was like you'd see Reckless is farming mid wave and they're all fighting in enemy jungle. So I think if you've got a guy who's like, for the love of God, lads, please stick around me, it might help work out a little bit more. So I'm glad to see he is a bit more vocal and not like nervous to talk, because I think he's going to need it.
Yeah, that happened a lot, didn't it? Where like they just like people were catching mid-waves and they were like 2-3 men all-inning in the jungle, losing the game. Like when the game was won, I remember Humanoid Ari on blue buff area for some reason in my head.
That Humanoid, where Humanoid just died, just leapt in and died. Rough seasons for both Koi and Fnatic, so hoping that this change is positive for them, because I think that, again, Fnatic is an orgy of high expectations of, even if you haven't for the last 2 splits, even if they did kind of turn things around a little bit in spring.
This is the Fnatic, like, we need to win the split to make top 6 and make worlds. And let's just go all in and full send it. I don't think this is a roster built on, like, this is going to be the best out of game roster and great cohesion, and we're going to build it up. They're like, we've not got any time left.
We got to go.
Just send it. That's the cards we can deal with, and see what happens.
Yeah. And Excel, another team that's made a change, have mixed up the cards a little bit. New jungler coming in, Peach from Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition, formerly from DRX Challenger.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna be honest, excited for Peach.
Yeah.
Peach, I'm curious to see what Peach can do. I don't know if this saves Excel from Excel. Because, a reminder for anyone, they have effectively no championship points. Might as well be 0. They got the consolation prize championship points both splits. So you talk about Fnatic needing to step on the gas. Excel are in a similar situation where they don't have a choice. They need to basically win. There are scenarios where they can make it without winning the split, but if they want to make it to the season finals, which is our top 6 teams, which is our world qualifiers, you got to win and you got to keep winning, and you can literally never stop, or there's nothing left for you.
I was watching EMEA Masters, and I was watching Unicorns run. I didn't watch the Prime League, but I was watching the EMEA Masters, and Peach, and he had a mid laner called Mask, who was also a Korean mid laner, and they were like this insane duo. Like they were gapping everyone. Mask's lane phase was insane. He was playing things like LeBlanc. Peach would play things like Graves and get like insane CS numbers, but his team was losing on sides because he didn't have that much activity on the map. So I see him as like a very farm-centric jungle, a bit selfish maybe, but it's like this jungle meta is flex any pick into jungle to make a lane win and just be useful. That's the jungle meta. Just go into a team fight and press R and like be lower econ. So we'll see how it integrates. But I was a big fan of him and Mask on EU Masters.
Yeah, I think you needed a swap up in the jungle anyway for Excel.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think Cersei was what the team needed. Because oftentimes you'd see like they're getting dove bot Cersei's on topside farming and stuff like that. And you're like, well, I guess there's not really much that you can really do here. So I think if Peach is going to be much more of a farm-centric one, I don't think that'll fit either for Excel. I think you will have to change it a little bit where it's like, okay, I'm going to actually play towards my lanes, because you've got Odo in the top side, he's going to be fine. But I think you actually do need to make sure that, well, if I can keep my bot lane in check and I'm able to make sure that we're winning bot and we can play for team fights, then we're in a much better position. But if that doesn't work out, I think we're just going to see the exact same from Excel.
Poor Odo. Guys, I'm fine. Yeah, it's over. Don't worry. Okay, great. 10th again. Oh, God damn it. Poor Odo. But Abadaga is there as well. They had Vetheo. Now Abadaga is full-time. We'll see what he can bring out.
And I think the important thing here for Excel is, while I don't believe a lot because they haven't given me reason to believe, unlike the winter to spring transition, they actually got a break and a chance to reset and a chance to start on the right foot. And from our previous discussions with Odo, it sounds like they never really got that chance in winter, in spring, to get on the right foot, to get everyone on the same page, to make sure the culture was together and make sure that they were all working towards the same goal. And I hope that has happened now with Peach coming in. It's still like tough. Like this is, I feel for these guys right off the bat, because every single best of one is going to feel like life or death. You've got this like axe hanging over your head at any moment. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a long journey for Excel. They got to make top 6. They got to get through the best of 3 stage, group stage. They got to be able to win a lot of best of 5s. They got to win the finals. Then they'll make top 6 summer, which they'll be 6th place in probably, even if they win the split. And then they got to win that as well. And then maybe they'll go to
I think even if they win the split, they're basically, I mean, they're basically guaranteed to be 6th.
Yeah,
which is crazy. But we'll hope for their sake and hope that Peach can be the difference. We'll talk about them more as we make a tier list a little bit later on. But the last change, of course, Heretics, Vetheo Flakked coming in, Flakked returning, the L+ ratio king himself, the Duck Master, joining again with Jankos. I'm excited for the Jankos Flakked reunion from a content perspective. I think that's going to be sick. And Vetheo I was hyped on in 2022.
But it's 2023.
But it's 2023. 2023 Vetheo, and I know that he went through some shit, and that's fair, and I hope that he's feeling in a better place, and I certainly would hope that that's the case, given that he's starting on a new team. And maybe we get flashbacks to when he was really doing some work on Misfits, but I still think it's still a little rough for Heretics. I think positive changes overall. Jack Spector really struggled on stage. I think this is in both cases an upgrade, because Heretics was just an int fest.
Yeah.
Again, speaking of like the Atlas effort of Neeko in the meta, Jankos and Heretics, just Jankos doing everything he can to hold this team up on his shoulders last season.
Yeah, I mean, Jankos was a god last split. The fact that like he was able to do anything with that team speaks volumes to him. But I think the bot lane doesn't, like, as you say, Flakked is good for content. I don't know. It feels fairly samey. I think Flakked will do better where he won't lose the lane as hard as Jack Spectre did, which is kind of harsh to say, but let's be real. But when you look at him in EMEA Masters, even when you look at him back on G2, it wasn't like Flakked was hard winning lanes. It was like, oh yeah, he's going to do his job, chill, and then he'll step into the later game team fights. And that's exactly what he did in EMEA Masters as well with Lost Heretics. So I feel like if you're coming into a meta that is lane focused, where we want to hard destroy you in lane and make sure that we're able to take over, well, that isn't what you're going to get with Flakked. He's still going to be a beast late game in those fights, but again, I don't know if they can kind of stack up in the 2v2. But I do think I'm probably higher you guys from the sounds of it on video. I think we got to still see like inklings of how good Vetheo is. Like there was 1 or 2 Jace games last split, and I think if he's just in a miserable team environment and not happy, the fact that you still get to see kind of that a little bit, I'm hoping he'll be able to bring it across now to Heretics. But yeah, I think Vetheo will, especially with Jankos by his side, can do really well this split. But I'm just not certain in a bot lane focused meta if Heretics are going to be the ones that I'm like, oh yeah, these guys are top 4.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Because if you look at like Vetheo with Razork, when he had like a really strong jungler, it looked like they were really on the same page. They were like heavy top side players. But maybe with Ruby, Jankos had like, I don't know, a language barrier. Ruby was losing a lot of lanes. He was always pushed in. Maybe if Jankos has a mid to work with, then he can help the sides. Because let's be honest, Abby without Cassante, not a fan.
I mean, I look back, like I think that he had the start of, and especially winter, looked pretty good for Ebby. Yeah. Cassante, he was the big Cassante guy all the time before everyone appreciated, I think, completely how nutso busted he is.
Yeah.
You know, forcing solo kills or solo dying. But like, just looking back, like one of the last times we saw him most recently was that Scion game where he was like, you know who's really popular, the Europeans love? The boss. You know what I can do?
Watch me.
He died still less than the boss, but he died a lot that game. That was a rough game.
So like the sides are still going to be, I think you're right. I think the lane phase for Flakked was never his strong point. G2 would always play top side, and he would play like things like Senna or something with Targamas. And so I think he'll make it a bit more stable, the game. Like I don't think he'll make as many mistakes because he's more experienced. But I think the team will be stronger. Their mid jungle will be stronger. Flakked will be safer and more reliable. And maybe Ebby's been stepping up throughout the offseason or something, or like maybe in his tank-centric meta, playing Sion and Ornn will kind of band-aid the problems that maybe they had with champions like Gwen and Renekton and Jax that they used to play. Yeah. So I think Heretics will do better. I think they can make top 6 this time.
Top 8.
Top 8.
You think top 6 or top 8? Because top 6 is different.
I meant the playoff best of 3. Yeah,
top 8. I was like, I just want that. I just want to be clear.
Yeah, top 8.
All right, Phil, do we have the last season's tier list? I can't remember if I asked you for it, so it's okay if we don't. Last season's tier list. The 2023 preseason tier list. This was the start of the year, gentlemen.
Drakos no S tier. Oh yeah.
I had no S tier.
That was a while ago.
This was the start of the year. This was in January. This is what we believe.
BDS and C tier.
We all put SK, BDS, and C tier, and Astralis in D tier. And obviously, this is a completely different point in the year. Yeah. We got some things wrong. I'm only bringing this up to meme. Like this has no bearing on anything at this point. But we're gonna make another tier list as a team this time.
Imagine putting XL in A tier. 10th, baby. Oh, damn.
I just want to check. At that point, were you employed by Excel? I'm kidding. I know you're not biased. Like you did actually believe in the team.
Question, actually.
You were.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't. In January, no, I wasn't. Imagine not putting anything in S tier. Couldn't be me.
You believed in. I mean, to be fair, Vetheo, Otawamne. You like looked at that team. You were hype. Yeah. Patrick, Targamas. There was hype. There was joy. We naively believed. Sweet summer children, thinking we understood anything about League of Legends, and now it's time to make the same mistakes again. Let's make a new tier list. We're gonna make it as a group. Yeah. They are horrible. They're bad analysis, but they're great clickbait.
Yeah.
And
they're so hard. I feel like you gotta have spicy takes, otherwise, like. Because if you always go stock standard, you're never going to be right. Like, if you told me it's January, BDS Astralis will be first and second in spring, I will say you're a psychopath. You're a permaband.
But
get off
also,
this
you would
podcast.
have no analytical basis. Like, even if you were right, what the hell would have been your argument at the start of the year?
That's the point. You don't make an analytical basis before, you make it after. It's like, well, let me tell you. In hindsight, I knew that this roster would function.
Of course, yeah. So at the time, I didn't want to share my reasoning because I thought that it would mess up the juju, the magic, so to speak, of my completely...
Didn't want to curse it.
Didn't want to curse it. So I obviously knew the entire time that the meta would get super stale and that Adam would be able to play champions where he just didn't have to lane, and that obviously Crownshot has always been a god and would just go super
How could
Saiyan.
you not have seen it, Drakos? Come on, look at the
Look
numbers.
at this. How do you not time every splitting infinitely? But I see Doctor Strange style, the one scenario. Like, it's absolutely nuts.
All right.
Anyway, so reminder, rankings of the teams are from S to D tier. S are summer favorites. Oh, by the way, if you're in podcast land and you can't see this tier list has been up forever. We've kind of mentioned some of it, but you can catch it on previous tweets, etc. We're not going to actually spend time talking about it. This new tier list, though, I will keep you verbally updated as we go through. Ranking teams, S to D tier. S are like your summer favorites, your contenders for the title. A are your, like, they're not favorites, but they're like, they're coming in hot. They could potentially do it. B is they have potential to make top 4. C are the group Andes. These are the guys who are like, you made the group Andes. Like, they made it to groups. They're happy. Maybe they can, and again, maybe they can do more. And the D is kind of the, like, it's like a D in real life. Like, you're here.
But a D is a pass in real life.
Yeah,
they ain't passing nothing.
Well, we're a franchise league, so they're gonna, or we have long-term partnerships, Caedrel, so they get to stay and come to the next class. So I can't give them an F, Caedrel, so they get a D.
Wait, our summer season finals start August 20th.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Right, no, let me cook. Our summer
split.
Summer split finals.
Yeah. Summer split, because let's do this now, because this is important. If you are confused about the nomenclature, it's fair. We say the word finals like 80 gajillion times. There's like an upper bracket, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. The important thing is, this is the summer split, what we're playing right now, this 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Then there's a short break, and then the top 6 teams play each other for our season finals, which is completely separate from winter, spring, summer. And that's how Worlds qualification and ultimately the grand champion of the LEC is decided.
It's June 14th. The LEC starts this weekend. If you're finishing bottom 2 this split, it means in 3 weeks' time, your season is over.
Oh, wow.
So you're telling me by mid-July, you're not playing till January?
All I'm saying is...
Where are we going? Where are we headed? Let's do a world tour.
I never thought I could make it as a pro player, but I could lose every LEC game. I could do that. And 5 months vacation does sound nice.
And not to throw them under the bus.
Because obviously they're sweating for their lives. Like, no one is deliberately intentional. It does suck. But there is some humor in it.
Halfway through July, August, September, October, November, December. 7 months. Where we headed?
Like, you go to Korea for 1 month, maybe get number 1, so people know that you're not washed. Like, but then what are you doing with the rest of that
with
time?
The rest of the half a year?
Bro, get a hobby. That's all I'm saying. Like, that's brutal, and I will feel for you if you are not making it farther. But it is time. You cannot play League of Legends for 7 months. Like you're gonna go crazy.
Like, even if you didn't make playoffs in summer last year, I think you'd end by like end of August. Maybe you'd have like the winter off.
Yeah.
Now you're giving me mid-July tomorrow. When's Tomorrowland? When is it?
Yeah.
It's the end of July, isn't it?
Don't say that. Humanoid's a different man, I heard. We heard from our makeup artist. He's motivated. He's fired up.
Someone's going to come back and it's going to be like, yeah, I'm a gap year. I went off to... And then they just come back with
my gap year.
My gap year. Just came back enlightened and like all these stories. But yeah, I went and I did yoga off the peaks of Tibet. And you're like, what?
Find God, find spirituality, come back a different person, get married, have a family. It's like that Rick and Morty episode where they play the game and they wake up and they realize that they've like that entire life that they lived is fake. That's it. That's what they're doing with this offseason. That's brutal. That has nothing to do with the tier list, but that is very sad and very funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, time to rank some teams. We're going to have a tier list behind us. You can see there's just a smattering of logos set around. I want to kick things off with Fnatic, Koi, Excel, and Heretics in whatever order you guys feel like it, just because we've already talked about their roster changes. Where do you feel like they're going? We'll start with, actually, I'll pick. We'll start with Heretics, since we ended on them.
Ooh. So, the last 2 splits, would you agree that they were C or D tier, the last 2 splits?
Oh, 100% C or D tier.
And these changes, I think, make them slightly better?
I would say C in winter and very clear D.
So I think instant reaction C tier is a safe bet for Heretics.
Because they got some upgrades, and so we think that they can maybe replicate. But, okay, here's the thing, my dude.
But if their mid-jungle
other teams are getting better and have stuck together.
Are you arguing for D tier here?
I'm kind of arguing for D tier. Because it's like, do you think this rebirth with Flakked Vetheo is enough? Because they were already, like, they did good in winter. They got worse in spring, and some of that was team stuff. But the other teams around them are getting better.
So the problem that I have with this is, if we're taking C as these are the guys that are going to hit 8th and they're going to get in towards the group stage, right? I actually think with the changes Heretics have made, I could see them making it. You know, with the changes Excel made, I could see them making it. Fnatic and everything. I actually think it's really hard to put a team. I know, like, BDS and Astralis, they used to be the easy ones. You're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to fire these guys into the bottom. But then they won. So now I'm like, what the hell do we do?
So this is the thing I was going to say. It's like, if I was to disagree and say I want them in C tier, and then who goes in D tier?
Yeah.
You know, like this is the problem. Is it Vitality, who is like finishing mid of the table? Is it Fnatic, who's got big roster upgrades and is rumored to be really good? Is it SK, BDS, Astralis, who are finishing in our top 3s? Yeah. No, it's not. That's the problem here.
Yeah.
This is where I'm like, I feel like I don't want to put them in D, but I feel like I have to if we're going to go But also everyone I feel like has an opportunity to get top 8.
I'm putting them on the line between C and D, and we can come back. But I think the big thing that we're talking about is the roster changes are upgrades.
But everyone else around them is good.
But everyone else is getting better. And while Flakked could come out and be Super Saiyan, we talked about the landing phase, and Yanko certainly should look better with Vetheo by his side. It's like, you gotta show us, because I'm not a believer. I believe in Yankos, absolutely. Do I believe in Heretics? Not super.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, let's leave it there for now. Because I think there's only one other team that I would consider D is like XL, right?
Yeah.
I'm slapped. That's a freebie though. That's and this is again, I every time I put a team in D tier, I'm not reveling in it, even if it sounds like we're having a good time right now. Because it doesn't feel good to sentence 5 players analytically to death, it feels like. You know what I mean? But again, Excel in a similar situation to Heretics, where if you want to believe in them, you can.
But they finished 10th twice.
But they finished 10th twice. And it's like, if you tell me that all they needed was a reset and now they're a top 5 team, I'm like, sure, but I'm not going to believe it till I see it. Like, I would listen to that and go, hey, that makes sense. You had team problems. You've solved your team problems. You have a new jungler that's working better with the team. And like across the board, you guys are all in better moods. And Avadage now has more time to work with the team. Like, sick. I can see how they would get out of D tier in as up to as high as B tier. All very plausible. I am not going to give them that benefit of the doubt after the 2 splits we watched.
Yeah, I just don't think that like Peach and Avadage solved the issues. Like, they didn't know any sort of game plan in the early stages, like an early game. Their mid game, they're all over the joint. Their team fighting, everyone was going different directions every single time. I don't think like slapping Peach and Avadage in there goes, right, we're good to go now. Like, I just don't see it. So I think for me, they have to be D tier. Like, I would love obviously to see them because I think they have incredible talent on this team, but it just doesn't seem to work together.
Yeah, agreed. It doesn't click. To be honest, if XL signs Peach and Mask, I'm sold for that mid jungle. I'd put them in CB tier. I think they can really cook in that league. But I don't know. I don't know what kind of language barriers Peach is going to have. When we looked at the stats of Peach, he's a very selfish farming jungler. And then you look at the example Dagda gave of we're getting dove bot. Xerxes on top side farming his Krugs. Is Peach going to be bot side? Yeah. Maybe not. It's not like someone who's like 1-1-3 who's just going to be an absolute psychopath level 2 in their jungle. So you cannot get dove no matter what. He's going to be farming. So I agree. Yeah.
Is there? I mean, it feels.
What are you thinking? Talk to me.
I'm trying to think if anyone else belongs to D tier, but we can just go one team at a time.
I don't think so. Let's go with the teams we already talked about.
Yeah. So Koi and Fnatic next, because we've already hit Koi and Fnatic briefly. Let's start with Koi, because it sounds like you have some positive things to say about Fnatic. So let's start with Koi. Where do we rate Koi after last season? They imploded, I think, in terms of expectation. This was a team that I think we pretty much expected. At the start of the year, we expected them to do great things. And then by the middle of the year, it's been like, well, we at least expect them to consistently get top 4. That has not been the case.
They finished 7th last split. They barely made the top 8. The thing is...
7th, dude. Think about that. That wouldn't have made playoffs back in the day.
Oh, yeah, you're telling me. So the thing is, with Koi, I think early split, they will be weak because of the support meta, and they will get better. If they can make top 8, I think they will do damage in a group stage. Will they make top 4? I'm not sure, but I think this could be a 5th, 6th place team if the meta shifts in their favor.
I think the problem for me is like, I don't think the meta is shifting in their favor. I think we're looking at tank tops, and like the whole reason they brought in Shigenda was to be a carry top laner.
Yeah,
right?
Ken got nerfed already.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like, okay, well, already we're looking at Shigenda's not in the meta that he wants to be. Advienne, at least for the first few weeks, isn't. And as you say, I think that's not an excuse. I still think they'll hit like C tier. I think they'll be top 8, at least in the group stage. But if the meta then shifts into being Advienne favored and Shigenda favored, they could look absolutely stellar. But I think at least from the early stages, I just don't have.
Yeah,
I don't have promise in them. I don't know.
So C tier for Koi.
It's also not really a Mal rank. The thing is, it's not a meta for anyone.
Yeah.
It's like Larson, as much as we meme him and say like he's a mage player and we try to argue that he's not, he really is good at mages.
Yeah,
But
like
it's
that's
not-
clearly like he is a more well-rounded mid laner, and we've seen that from him, and we saw that from him in the 2022 run. But at the end of the day, when it comes to like what do you know that Larson is going to be the best at, it still feels like mages.
But mid meta right now is like Cassante, Annie, Ari, something like that.
I'm
You know,
hoping for Corki,
Neeko,
bro.
Neeko, right?
Those Lord Domin exchanges are juicy for Crit Corki. Stormrazor juicy for
Corki,
Corki.
okay,
That's
well,
what I'm
yeah,
saying.
let
I'm
Drake
holding
us
on.
cook.
I'm just saying.
But it's not like a Syndra. I mean, Syndra, I suppose, but it's not like an Orianna Azir kind of like controls
Azir
super heavy
seems
mage meta, which
unplayable.
Larson is so insane at. So it's not really his meta. It's not a carry top meta for Shigenda. It's not a Trundle, Jarvan, Psycho engaged level 1 meta for Malrank. So meta for them is not great.
I'm down for C, but that immediately has to demote Heretics to D.
Okay.
Are you
Deal.
fine with, is that a deal?
Deal. Yeah.
And that feels bad, but I'm sorry, I can't put a team with, they're just the caliber of player on Koi.
It's frustrating because I think they're
Because it's comp, dude.
Yeah.
It's comp Larson. Like,
like-
that's a sick carry duo. If they're C tier, I can't say Heretics are C tier. Like, that's not. And like, I'm happy to be wrong here, but just on paper, at least.
Can we put them to... No, we can't. Yeah, no. What do you think, Dagda? Talk to
That's
me.
so hard. I just have so much faith in Vetheo Yankos. I think this is just going to be such a sick mid jungle.
I agreed.
And that's where I find it really tough. Like, I think Flakked will be able to hold his own in bot side. But like,
It's holding,
I don't know.
Holding your
It's
own.
also-
I agree with Dagda as well. Like, it's so bad to put Heretics in D tier because I really think that mid jungle AD is a big upgrade. Can we put it on the line of CD? Can we like C minus? What do you
C
think?
minus
Can we
needs
break
to work
the rules,
harder.
Papa Dracos?
It's like,
You can
see me after class.
No, you can.
You know what? I can break the rules. I got a mouse.
I mean, the thing is, it's very slow to update right now.
I
so
can't
people,
move it.
People. That's because I've got it clicked. What's up?
Let's go.
I'll put them in C. Do you guys really strongly believe in Yanko's Vetheo? I'm willing to go off the rails, drive off this cliff with you guys. You know, I'm a lemming. I'll follow. I'm saying that it's a stretch.
Hang on,
as long as you look
let's
at
bring
me
it
in the,
back.
as long as you tell me that you agree that it's a bit of a stretch, we can put him in C.
Look, is Vetheo going to be able to show his stuff? If we have the same argument with Larson, can Vetheo really show his stuff on Annie? Like, and then...
No, I believe. Dagda, you can't do this to me. Like, 5 minutes ago, you were gassing me up, and now you're like questioning
These
it.
are the questions
and
you have to ask.
gaslighting it.
Because the first comment's going to be like, "Why are you saying that VTO's allowed to play whatever the hell he wants, and this guy's jailed?" You know, like,
I'm C tier.
okay,
All right,
made
C
my
tier.
decision.
Again,
All right,
I'm fine with it.
I'm going back. I'll stick with the C tier.
All right,
Because I
Last
think if you go Maokai Jace or something on this team, it's sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, on Heretics? Oh yeah, Vetheo,
Vetheo
Jace,
and Jace,
Jesus.
yeah.
Okay, okay. No, agreed.
So-
Jace jungle.
after our first 3 teams so far, we have Excel in D tier, Koi in C tier, and Heretics scraping by into C tier with some very big confidence coming in for their mid jungle specifically. Next is Fnatic. This is the very interesting one. I think this is the juiciest of all the teams simply because there's not as much on paper to show, and I think that if they hadn't made any changes, they would be in D tier.
Yeah. I am.
Despite their good run, Fnatic fans. I'm not trying to undercut their good run. I just don't. What are you doing? You know?
What are you doing? No, what are you doing? So, where would you say Fnatic was last split on a tier list? So they finished 6th and they lost to that base die thing against, was it Mad Lions? Was Mad Lions, right?
Yeah, it's Mad
So
Lions.
if you were to contextualize their split in a tier list and say...
I think they were probably a B tier team last year. And because it's not like they showed high highs, but if we go into the definitions that I had loosely, which is the like have potential, I never thought that Fnatic were a real contender for the title. Yeah. They were, and it wasn't like they were stealing wins. They were playing well to get the wins that they did. Don't get me wrong. Not every game, but like, you know, they had their moments most certainly. But I never like was full on like in the way that we were with or essentially were forced to be with BDS because of how good they played. Like they never changed my mind, you know? You think that's fair? I don't know. Where would you put Fnatic this season?
I would put Fnatic in B tier as well. But right now, I think this bot lane is a big upgrade. It gives them way more to play around. It takes a lot less stress from Oscar. He debuted playing tanks and was getting murdered in lane by players like Photon because he's just getting absolutely counterpicked for no real reason in this side of the map. And now he has a lot more leverage in draft to be like, I can sacrifice, I can counterpick, I can, you know, because it's early rotation bot meta, he can just chill out. And he can play tanks in better matchups or carries where he wants to. So I think that the bot lane frees up the draft a lot, gives him a bigger win condition. I think the team overall will be stronger. I'm going to say A tier.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say I'm probably looking at the lower end of B tier. Because the big question for me is how much faith do we have in Noah? Because I think Humanoid is going to be good at it a little bit this split. Because, I mean, literally looking at his games last year, it was 8 games on his ear and then 2 on the next closest one. So he was a bit of a one trick. And I think if you're going to be going into it, the moments when his Humanoid was able to pop off, that's when Fnatic looked good, right? And
I'm with you. I like... Fnatic are hard mostly because in a world where Humanoid was a more consistent player, they would be a really easy team to predict on, and I would feel much less... It'd feel much more about just how good do I think Noah's going to be. Yeah. But Fnatic are kind of always a flip to me. I do think Oscar will get better. I think Trymbi is a support upgrade.
Yeah.
And actually, but I think those 2 upgrades, and if we even just assume that over time, Humanoid averages about the same performance that he did last season, same with Razork, I still think that's an upgrade, and I think that maybe deserves A. It's harder to contextualize without the rest of the teams on the board.
Well, let me tell you
the 2 things I'm worried about are Oscarinen playing tanks, right? Because as you say, I don't think he had the best of times last year.
Yeah.
And then if we do get that Enchanter shift from the bot lane as well, Trymbi's not in exactly the most comfortable spaces.
Yeah,
so
he was
the big question mark,
Recon, but the rest wasn't as.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like a huge amount of this. And like even when you look at LPL and everything like that, like don't get me wrong, you have huge plays coming through from some of the top mid laners, but it isn't about, hey, this mid laner carried. It's like, oh, this mid laner got this sick charm or this great Annie engage or, you know, this Neeko engage, right? Valid. So I think a lot of this comes down to how much faith do I have in Noah. And well, knowing Trymbi specifically, right? And that's where I'm not 100% certain on. I think they could be absolutely godlike, but I don't know what Noah's communication's like. I don't know how Noah still looked good in Zero Tenacity, but is he like LEC level good, right? Because when you look at our bot lanes are pretty strong in a lot of cases, and that's where I'm like, does a new bot lane with a completely unknown in Noah really match up to some of the best we have? Yeah. And that's where I'm like probably leaning more B tier because I feel like that's going to be the difference maker here for Fnatic.
Valid points. I agree. I think the meta shift one is one that I like am agreeing on the most. I think when I think of Trymbi's melee supports that he can play, quote unquote, Rakan, I guess, and Braum were like his things. You know, the Braum was his band-aid for melee supports. His Nautilus Leona were not exactly the best. He wasn't fine.
It just wasn't like he was the hero of the day on the
he was always the guy that would like break the meta with like trying to play things like Nasus or some random wacky supports with like Senna or stuff like that to actually
make. He was one of the only people that could play Lux in a Lux Caitlyn lane. He was
but he played it well. So I can see where you're coming from. I just think that as much as our bot lanes are really strong, and when I think of our strongest bot lanes, I think of Crownie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name sports. I'm just going to say ADs to name bot lanes. I think of Crownie, Hans, and Upset. Those are the 3 bot lanes that like stand out to me the most. But in a meta where it's like Zeri, Aphelios right now, especially with it being 13-11 for a while, I do think that the lanes aren't as punishing. Like you can go even in lanes where, like if you're playing Aphelios Jinx or Aphelios Zeri, it feels hard to like 2v2 dominate. To me, it's like very jungle heavy impact of like, let's force dives and zone them off waves, and that's how bot lane gets leads. And I think Humanoid, I think Humanoid Razork are, as much as I agree with a lot of fan sentiment, like Razork had some really weird engages in some team fights, especially in the group stage, in the knockout stage. Some of his engages on Vi and Sejuani were wild. I do think their early to mid game is good, and I think I'm a bit worried about Humanized Champion pool as well, but I looked at his match history. He's playing a lot of Ahri, a lot of Neeko. So he's had a break, and I think he's realized he needs to pick up these champs. So I think, as much as I agree with the weaknesses they have, I think they've got their weaknesses covered.
Damn it. That's on me then, isn't it? Between A and B.
It's on you.
Get called Fnatic bias, get flamed by Fnatic fans. Those are my choices. I'll choose get called Fnatic. I'm kind of with you. I think that the meta being so static when you're putting a new team together is a solid thing to have, and it simplifies a little bit in the beginning. So I'll say I very much expect that Fnatic could drop down to B.
Or you're going to put them in A.
So
I'm going to put them in A.
Well, see, this is the thing for me. Look at the teams that are floating on the edges, and I'm like, I can already see like 4
we
teams.
can we can edit this.
Let's put Fnatic on the line. Put Fnatic on the line.
Then, yeah.
Fnatic is
put them on the line.
Is on the line between A and B. We'll see where they end up as we go through more teams. And so those are the first 4 teams that we've covered. Again, Fnatic between A and B. C clearly for Koi and Heretics, who scraped in. D for Excel. And now we've got a couple more teams left. I want to start with the team that didn't go to MSI, and that team is BDS, because with the meta being the same, is it weird to say that they could still be an S tier team in our league, or at very least an A tier team in our league? Because I saw the finals, and I know people were hyped. I think they got exposed. I think Nuclear Ant's champion pool does not seem very big. It seems like Cassio, Ori, Syndra, and I think the Syndra was bad, so I didn't love the Syndra, but it seems like that was his third choice. But crowning Labrov, very good. The way that they played the game, still very good. I don't think that they're not playing in the finals versus Mad Lions. They're not playing these best of 5s. And I think the way that they play is pretty stable for best of 1s. So I feel like at the start of the season, and 13-11 at the very least, I think BDS are set up to be one of our best teams.
I think for BDS, this is the team where I'm like, I think we need to clarify on if this is regular season finish or if this is playoff finish.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the big difference maker for me. Because I think in playoffs, they do play a one-dimensional style. And if they don't, start to change that at all, well, then they're going to get found out in playoffs again, which is exactly what I think happened. To a certain extent, I think they also did choke. I mean, 2-0 up and then they don't get the win.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks.
Yeah, their gameplay was so weird when they saw the game reverse.
But that's where I think if this is season, regular split, I think this is where I put them in S tier. Like, I genuinely think this is like the exact same split or meta where they want to be in, where it's like, we'll shove a Scion up to the top side for Adam. He'll do his thing. And then he'll just like wander around like he did. He won't go to a lane. He'll just make sure that Granny gets the farm and then they pop off. But I think if you're then starting to talk about, okay, well, we're going in towards playoffs, well, then I'd probably drop them down to A tier because teams have time to prep against them and maybe they can't. Teams will kind of figure them out how to play in a best of 5.
Yeah, I think this is mostly for the start of the season because I'm with you. I think that BDS, when it comes to being a truly great team and not just getting wins, like there's still work that they need to do to have more, I don't know, bows in the quiver, whatever you want to say, more options, more tools in their back pocket, because we have seen this team be very good in exactly one meta with pretty much exactly one play style. And the second that started to fall apart, they didn't really have anything else left. And while I expect them to have developed and certainly to feel very hungry after being so close, I especially once we go over to a new patch, I'm just like, I have zero idea what to expect. If we stay in this meta forever, I'm like, BDS is perpetually a top 4 team in our league until the end of time. If we don't, I'm like,
I want to believe, like I really do. I just think mid lane is gonna make this team collapse. Like, to me, Nuke is a similar player in a sense to Larson, just less experienced.
Yeah,
and he's like a mage heavy player. Like he's playing Cassio in the finals. He's playing like champs like Azir and stuff like this. When it's Ahri, Annie, Cassante, Gragas, stuff like this, and it's more about pushing waves and hovering to sides than it is scaling and playing for items and catching side waves, the game is going to be a lot different when you have a Scion top and your bot lane's winning and your mid can't move.
Yeah.
If he's adapted to this meta, I would agree, like regular season, they could be S tier. I'm just not sure if he's adapted to this meta. Like, I know this is the biggest question I have because we don't have the information, right? You look at Humanoid, you look at Larson, you look at them not playing these champs and then coming to this meta and being can they?
And I will say, and this is an important note, is that while this has been the meta for a long time and probably was the meta through our playoffs, people were not very good at Annie. domestically. People were not very good at Ahri domestically. So I'm with you. Now that there's been more time and people are basically forced to pick up and match these champions, because that was a weakness that probably should have existed in their great playoffs run, but didn't. Teams couldn't punish him up until the Mad Lions.
Yeah.
And so, I think if Nuke is going to be successful, it kind of relies on no one else still being able to play those champions or him having picked up those champions. But again, it's not something we've seen from him yet.
The only info we can go off is solo queue. And he's actually, I haven't checked his solo queue account, but he's actually the one who probably impressed me the most. He's spamming Ahri, spamming Cassante, spamming Annie. Looks like he's got a lot of games played on him. I think he's realized maybe this is the direction the meta is going in, and this is the champions he needs to play. Whether he can execute it or not in the stage games is another thing. He's playing Neeko, so props to him. Like, looks like he's practicing these champs more than the other mid laners. You know, Humanoid and stuff. When I looked at their solo queue accounts, they're still playing things like Jace and stuff. So if that's a playstyle he can adapt to, then that changes their team. Because you say they're a one-trick team, and they're going to play mage mid, scaling bot, tank top. Now they're going to play engage mid and supportive mid. How do they look with that? You know, playing in solo queue is great and having good win rates is great. Now you have to have a voice in the team.
I don't think that Nuke was so core to the team's success outside of a few very standout games. Again, I think I don't want to oversell Nuke, but I don't want to undersell Nuke either here. I don't think this team lives or dies on Nuke, personally. I think the meta might live or die on mid lane, but even when it was supposed to do that previously, it wasn't really the case. So, at least domestically, always see. So where do you put them? What's your ranking? I guess is the ultimate.
My debate in my head was, are they A or S tier?
I think
and
A
my
feels
my debate was, what can Nuke play and can they play that style? And the fact that, I mean, his Cassio was permabanned, wasn't it, in the finals or something? Like, he was smurfing on Cassio.
Yeah,
I would agree with Dagda and say S tier. I would take the risk and just say it.
S tier.
Yeah,
regular gave
season.
Me a gajillion reasons.
I was thinking out loud of like,
and I appreciate that. I'm just like, I felt like you were arguing to demote them, and now you're like S tier.
No, the argument in my head was, they're a one-trick team. This will get them so far. If they can play other styles with Nuke playing these roaming mids and adapting to like the current meta of what mid lane looks like, that could transform the team in a positive direction or a really negative direction.
But you want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they can probably pull it off.
I'm with you, to be honest. Like, again, I don't know if BDS's style should have worked as well as it did.
I'm also asking, if they're not S tier, who is, you know?
Yeah.
And it's hard because the thing is, the last time we saw BDS outside the finals, they were sick. And the most recent games we have from Mad and G2 are them just getting blasted. But by obviously a much higher caliber of team. So it's tough.
Because even G2, like, if we're going to move on to them later on anyway, like,
let's
just swap they were our 4th seed.
Yeah.
At MSI, they were like our 4th place team. They lost to Koi in the first round, then beat them again, and then lost in the best of 5 against Mad Lions and got knocked out. And it's like, that's G2. And then they went to MSI, did a decent performance, won a game against PLG. How good a G2? You tell me.
I have no idea, dude.
I have no idea.
The thing is, again, with the meta being very stale, you would assume that they could shake things up. But they could have done that in our playoffs too, and it didn't. Yeah. And then
I said craps. Caps just looks bad. Like, what's your way to say?
Struggling. I mean, the thing is I think that for the first time in his entire career, Caps no longer has the plot armor, the benefit of the doubt. And that's not a narrative. It just means that, like, when players hit a certain caliber, you trust that they're going to show up when it matters. You know what I mean? Historically, Perks was that player. He's probably not that player anymore. And Caps is now coming out of that stage of his career. And it's not that he can't go back, but it's that Caps is no longer the guy you trust to make magic happen. You know, like, you look at Caps and you look at who he's playing against in, you know, the peak years of his career, and you're like, he can do some shit. I look at Caps at MSI and I'm like, damn, that's a tough matchup. He's gonna be struggle. Like, I do, like, he's no longer superhuman. He no longer gets that benefit of the doubt. Yeah, he got bullied. And again, Chovy's awesome, but historically, Caps was a player that you were like, no matter who he went out against, you're like, he'll find a way. Yeah. He can figure it out. He can make it work. And I think that's not there anymore. And I think that hurts the team a lot. You talk about mid collapsing on BDS, and I think G2, it's not champion pool. I think it's certainly performance issues, and I hope Caps can figure it out, because he's a player that, like, he's the Western GOAT. He is, in my eyes. And I think that, like, it would this is not what I want to see from Caps, what anyone wants to see from Caps. And while I want to be hopeful, MSI did not restore that hope. The playoffs run domestically didn't restore that hope. And so to me, even though I think that G2 overall is a really good team, do I trust them to walk into a best of 5 against a composed BDS or Mad Lions and immediately smash them?
What do you reckon?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Drakos, where it's like I trust their bot lane. I think their bot lane is sick. And especially the fact that they can actually play aggressive picks like Draven is going to make things a little bit easier for them. Just because, again, if you have to ban that and it looks really good at the moment, you're in a great spot. But yeah, I don't know. The Caps, again, it's not even, as you say, like champion pool issues. He's going to be able to play the Annies and the Aries and everything else. But it's like when you see him for the 4th time in a couple of weeks now, overextending the mid lane and getting collapsed on, you're like, mate, you're not supposed to do this. It's hard to fully trust in G2. I still think they are A tier. Like, they're still going to be one of our best teams. But it does feel like, especially after watching MSI, like G2 was always the team that you kind of looked at, and even Fnatic back in like 2018 and stuff, where you're like, these are the teams that can go up against the LCK and the LPLs of the world. But it just feels like right now, that magic is gone.
But it is important to note, as much as like we're talking about Caps, like the magic is gone. He is still he's playing domestically. He doesn't have to play LPL, LCK.
The one thing I was just going to say quickly on that is because I prefaced the idea of G2 with a lot of negatives, saying like how bad they looked or like their recency. But also, if you think about it and contextualize their series and kind of zoom in a bit, the BLG series, they're 1-1. They should have won that game 3, The Janna pick was working. If they've actually played that team fight better, they probably would have won that game. If they flashed the charm, for example, and they turn, if BB doesn't stop watch, obviously that didn't impact the fight as much. But on paper, they were matching up a little bit, and then they collapsed after that game, and then they lost game 4 really hard. So not bad performance overall in that actual series if you zoom in a bit. But then again, you have to contextualize the rest of the split as well and their playoffs performance and everything leading up to it. So I would agree as an A tier.
I think the only thing that might bump them up to S tier for me is like, how much can they cook? Like, if this is actually turning into a meta where you've got like flexing into jungle that goes top, then goes mid and does all the fancy things, well, then maybe this is actually a team that could do it.
But they're tank champions you're flexing. Like, you're flexing champs like Sion and Nautilus.
But even then, I think that if this was best of 3 or best of 5, I would actually feel more comfortable putting G2 in A tier. Yeah. But I think best of 1, if we still believe in G2 to cook, like best of 1 is the time to cook. Like, you can get edge. I'm really torn. Actually,
is best of 1 the time to cook? Where did they finish in spring? Didn't they finish like 4th, 3rd?
You remember like all the Pantheon stuff that they tried? Like, it didn't work out as cleanly in best of 3. But if that was just a best of 1, that first game versus beat, they'd win.
So what are you thinking?
Yeah. But I mean, that is only the first 3 weeks, right? So you still got to get through groups, and I think that's
but this is just start of the season. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's really hard.
I know that they're working a lot outside of the game. Like, we saw them doing like all these workouts together and stuff, and like they're probably doing a lot of games.
Like, the team environment seems good. Like, I've talked to the team. I saw them on media days briefly. Like, they seem like they're doing good. Like, in terms of the team atmosphere, I think it's just like, and I don't want to put more pressure on Caps, who I'm sure is already putting a ton of pressure on himself. Yeah. He's not super pleased with his own performance, but like, that's kind of the missing piece of the puzzle for me right now.
The reason I'm against S tier is because when we were looking at G2 coming into playoffs, we were like, oh, the regular season was a bit shaky. Caps is rank 1. G2 is like done cooking. They're back in business. They lost their best of 5. Yeah. Okay, well, all my hopes gone. Like, this was supposed to be the time, Caps, everyone's back. No one's back. So that's why I'm reserved for S tier.
Yeah. I think it's A.
I think A. Yeah, I think it is a very tough call. I think if people at home are making tier lists and they want to put G2 and S tier, I can understand how you would get there. But I think that, there's a few too many question marks, and there's a few too much that you have to bet on right now.
There's too much like G2 leverage, like their historic stuff of like what they can do. It's fading a bit, Like, they're fine in the regular season. Oh, they'll make it in playoffs. That stuff's like kind of dwindles for me.
Yeah, it's dwindled a bit, and I think that they have a chance to prove us wrong, and I think a lot of it does. I think the problem is if we put them in S tier, we're basically just assuming that they have broken. Like, a lot of that hinges on assuming that they have broken the meta wide open, which, as you highlighted, is, given what we've seen from other regions, less likely to be something cool and sexy like a Pantheon, and more likely to be a weird tank flex, which just isn't as game defining as the Belveth out of nowhere or whatever.
Yeah, should we move on to like SK?
SK,
it's 5th place. Then they bombed in best of 3s. To me, they're just like a middle of the table team.
I actually think this is the team that benefits the most from the minion changes. Because if you think back to SK, it was like the second you played against SK, it was like, we're 4-man bot again and again and again and again and again. And then it was like, Exekick doesn't get to play the game. So I actually think for SK, the fact that they can now lane 2v2 is a mega buff for this team.
But my only counterpoint would be a lot of the wins SK got, was it a winter or spring? I'm not sure. They played Elise, didn't they? And like the Elise was banned against them a lot.
That was winter.
Oh, was it winter they played Elise? What did they? Let me have a look in summer. Because I remember the first thing I think of SK is Marcoon just spam diving bots with Elise.
Spring was a season for SK that really lacked coordination. The game I remember the most clearly was they played Rumble Wukong as a duo. And they were just throwing random ults. Like SK really collapsed on a team level in their final best of 3 at the end of the season. My thing on SK is I think they hit the ground running. I think they've got a good team environment, and that made winter look fantastic. I think we saw a lot of potential for these players, but I think the team that I feel like is just getting past at this stage is SK.
Yeah.
Because, and again, they've had an entire offseason, but I think the momentum that they had in winter has clearly dwindled off, and unless they come in and hit the ground running again, it's like, to me, SK is a C tier team. I would put them alongside Koi, alongside Heretics.
Yeah, I agree.
They could surprise us and end up in B, but I'm not going to put them on the same tier as XL. I think that's disingenuous. I think that's not fair to how well they have 100%. Performed.
Yeah.
But I can't comfortably put them above Koi or Heretics at all, right? And so to me, it's just very natural to slot them in
I would
C.
put them like in C above Heretics, for example. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Heretics barely scraped in because of you both. So yes,
with the changes we like argued it, but I would agree. Like, there's not much to touch on with C, but yeah, you're right. They were cooking a few things. I remember now with the Rumble and stuff like this, and they lost like 7 or 8 games in a row going into the knockout stage.
Marcoon's Wukong was really most Wukongs were pretty crap domestically for our region, to be completely honest. Like,
I like this team when Marcoon's on a carry, but it's just the carry jungle meta it's hard to pull off.
Marcoon gets to gank, good team.
Yeah, agreed. And Certus when he can like roam around, play things like his Talia, get the ball rolling. But it's a bit harder. Like I was talking about them, you talked about the mini changes.
Yeah,
it's a bit harder to get the ball rolling on those side lanes as much anymore. And I think to me, SK is like our benchmark. Benchmark. This is middle-ish of the pack, maybe a little bit lower. They'll like probably have a decent, like a fine regular season, maybe like 7, 6.
They make top 8 for sure. How they do in best of 3s remains to be seen. But like this is a team I think clearly.
Agreed.
Them not making top 8 would be a surprise.
I'll put them in the middle.
I think they'll could hit 6-7. I think that's where I kind of have. I actually genuinely think, looking back on their games, like the amount of crap that got sent towards their bot lane, which was the big talking point for them in winter. I think you could see like them coming back here. But I do think, I agree with you, Marcoon's the big question mark for me, because it just doesn't feel like he's really found his footing outside of the Elises and that kind of stuff. And then just being able to play around bot lane a lot. And especially now when you don't have, Certus can't really play. You can play Talia and stuff, but it's just not really finding those opportunities to roam as much. That's where I'm a little bit more worried. But I think this is where we'll probably see a revival for Exekick and DOS, because I think they'll actually be allowed to play the game. And that's where I have a little bit more faith in them. But I agree. I think it's like 6-7 is probably not going to push uber high. I just think we're going to see a better version of SK this
and there's not much else to talk about really, is it? They're like the end of their spring season was weak. I'm looking at it now. I remember they were like falling. They hit the ground running really hard, and we're like, oh, this is SK from winter. Like the X-Kick's back. Like they're so good. And then X-Kick faded away. The Marcoon plays like faded away, and then they get to the group stage and they're just rolled. So
I think as well, it's the perfect meta for Irrelevant, right? He's like Sion Jack's player. So cool. So I mean, it could help, but I think it's really a case of how much can bot lane do the carrying, and I think that's where it's kind of like you still have insane 80 carries at the moment, so.
Yeah. Next up, let's talk about Astralis. This is an easy one, and I think this one will decide a lot about where Fnatic's place. Actually, we can move Fnatic last, I think, probably. Astralis, this is a team that, again, regular season, Kings, the leader style, very good, became less good as time went on. I think the teams that played against them described their style as fight, fight, fight. We will fight you wherever you want to fight. We will show up. You will assume that you are safe and you are not safe. And as teams cleaned up their gameplay as we headed into best of 3s, this looked a lot less good than it did in best of 1s. Again, leader kind of shaking up the play style, but at the end of the day, Kabe, amazing regular season, amazing split. Again, shout out to Kabe. 6 season.
Yeah, they have one of the best bot lanes.
He is the 80 carry equivalent of Yanko. The Yankos had the hard carry team. That's not as fair. But like, he's another player that, despite the team not always being 100%, has just been having that massive impact individually. And I'm arguing that they're in B tier. It's the only empty tier right now. Quick recap for everyone listening along. S tier is BDS. A tier is G2. Fnatic hovering between A and B, yet to be finally placed. C tier is Koi, Heretics, SK, and D is Excel.
They finished second place in the regular season, right? So, but the thing is, to me, they're such a volatile team. It's like leader. What these new lethality item changes, for example.
Yeah.
Does this benefit leader or does this hurt leader? Is Talon and Zed now even stronger? Kiana, I think we already saw Kiana in the LPL.
Yeah.
Who was it? IG? Someone was playing Kiana in the LPL. I remember seeing it. Anyway, does this benefit or hurt him? That's the thing I'm questioning, because even I don't know. You look at me, I'm like, do I know the answer to the lethality item changes for mid lane? I don't actually. I haven't seen it much played still. I don't know if that's because teams or players are just sticking with whatever the meta is right now, or they haven't tried it, or it's just bad. So it could be a flip. And leader's always been a secret solo queue account. I've hunted for a solo queue account everywhere. It's unknown. I don't know what his account is. So he's playing on a secret account somewhere. So whatever leader's doing in his hyperbolic time chamber, we're gonna find out. It's either great or terrible. And I think they do still have one of the best bot lanes in the league. And also 113, I think, was as much as this guy is the biggest psychopath I've ever seen.
I think he and leader work super well together.
Yeah. This guy's good.
When teams can slow, from what we saw, at least again in spring, and teams will change a lot even if the meta doesn't. When you can slow this team down, you really start to see the holes in their game plan. It feels like their strategy to win the fight is always just to be more aggressive than you. Which, if we're talking street fights, is how a lot of people win street fights.
Do you remember?
But if you're talking fencing matches, you lose every fencing match with that strategy.
Like his regular season was good, but then you remember that graphic we had where it's like his last 4 games, he went 2-7-0-8-0-8-0-7, and if you add it all up, he was like 230, 2 kills, 30 deaths, and that's 113. He's like the Hylissang on steroids in the jungle.
I think, I think 113 is like another Malrang style player where this man ganks. This man is clearly working well with leader, and clearly his goal is to impact the map. I think it's a bit one note at the moment, and I think it could hurt him as time goes on. But from a player that looked really underwhelming when we first saw him, truly came alive in spring alongside leader.
But then he failed in groups really hard.
Yeah, failed in groups really hard, but that again, it worked really well for them in best of 1. I don't think Astralis is a C tier team. I would put Astralis in B. I think their bot lane alone is so reliable. I think Finn has been pretty reliable. Do I think that Finn is going to outclass every lane meta? Maybe not, even though he has been. He's been looking pretty good in solo queue from what I can recount. He's been you kind of want to believe in Finn with how good he consistently looks in solo queue. And I think the leader 113 train, yes, it got stopped in best of 3s, but until people stop it in best of 1s, I have faith. Now, faith does mean B tier. Faith does not mean A tier. I would not put them on the same tier as G2. Even if Caps sprints it in mid lane, which again, I don't think Caps is that poor performing. G2 is just, I still think I cut above.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is when you look at the big picks that are in the jungle at the moment, we didn't see Wukong for 113 at all. Literally just didn't play it. His Vi also wasn't mega impressed on. He's 4 games, no win rate. Because I don't think he's very good at as you say, playing a bit of a psychopath, getting into the enemy jungle, getting his lanes ahead. But I think when you actually come back to, okay, these are champions that you kind of need to be the engaged setup, that's where he started to fall apart for me. Even when I looked at his Maokai, there was a couple of team fights where I was like, why in the name of God are you throwing your ultimate here? And I think if you are then going to rely on him to kind of play these champions, I think that's where it'll cause issues as well. Now, you still have Ornn and stuff on the top side and technically Sion, but I think it's just a lot of when I look at LPL or LCK, it is the jungler that's actually starting off the fights a lot of the time. So that's where I just don't have the most confidence in him. So I'd be happy enough putting him in B.
Yeah, his engages were a bit scuffed. And then he was playing things like Jarvan and Trundle and all of these Sinzao, I remember as well, where he's flipping the 1v1 against Bo and then losing it. But he gets caught a lot. He needs to stop the 113 int that he does every now and then. But when he's on point, he can shut the enemy jungler down pretty hard, and him and leader will just be nutcases to the map. So I'm happy with B.
Mm-hmm.
B seems fair. All right. Astralis have the potential. We'll see how far they go. Matter Vitality got 2 teams left.
It's so hard, man. The thing is with this tier list, a lot of people maybe at home were like, well, this looks similar to spring, or maybe we're doubting some teams and being a bit Nancy negative, but it's we haven't seen them play in 2 months, some of these teams, and we haven't seen any of their meta shifts as well. It's dude,
when Mad click, they're really good. And the thing that stresses me out is I don't want to rehash all the MSI drama, but there was that like big drama over like whether or not Niski looked sad enough when he lost.
Are you smiling right now?
Yeah, bro. And I'm like,
don't smile when you're talking about this.
I just don't even want to get into that because that's just a shit show. But if you missed it, there's just like a lot of stress and drama around this team. And I think from behind the scenes, I had heard rumors of like difficult relationships. And when Matt are getting along, Matt are a good fucking team. And Niski and this Gragas meta, great. And I just don't. That shit I find very unsettling because the behind the scenes stuff is so hard to put into words. But when Matt are performing, I feel like we would have to put Matt in S tier on BDS, but it also feels wrong. I will say that already. And that's just that element of me not knowing what's behind the scenes, but knowing that it could have been what impacted the performance negatively in the past. So
yeah, and Mac tweeted after MSI saying things like, this is not us. Like everything collapsed, everything's wrong. And I agree. When things are going right, they're one of the best teams. When things are going wrong, they're terrible. They just fall apart. And I mean, you can see that clearly at MSI. We don't need to beat the dead horse, but they were fucking terrible at MSI. That was an abysmal performance. And every international event Mad Lions goes to, they suck. That's just a fact. Every international, they can't get through play-ins. They can't beat NA in best fight, whatever it may be. They can't do anything at MSI. No damage. That's it. So domestically, they're so good, and that's why it's so frustrating, because you look at every time we do these tier lists, the most recent thing was an international, and they sucked at it.
Yeah.
And then you go to the regular season, and they're good again. Or maybe not the regular season, but you know what I mean, like the best of 5 scenario. So to me, they're like S/A tier. They're like on the line.
I think we have to put them S, because like...
No, we can't. No. Can't do it.
I think we have... They beat BDS. They beat G2. Their run was good. They were so consistently good. And yeah, there's the one Fnatic game and like if things had gone different. But like,
I think here's my base take before you go ahead, David, because I know you've probably got a lot to talk about this. Remove S tier.
You think it's all just A? I'm in the past have been opposed to an S tier overall.
The reason I think they're A anyway, like I still think we hold on to S, but I think the reason they're A is when I look back at the reason they won playoffs, it was Chasey going God mode. Like Chasey popping the hell off on like he went to Jace, the Gwen, he was even his Cassante game, he was popping the hell off. So look, he has Cassante, right? But if I'm going back to, well, you're on Sion duty, mate. It's like, go carry. Like it's not really gonna be there. If I look at it at 2v2, do I fully trust Carzy and Hilly? Like, And especially if we're going for Enchantress at the start, like even at MSI where we had Enchanter meta, Hilly played Annie and that was it. Otherwise it was Pikes and everything else. Like he didn't actually play the Enchanter meta.
Yeah.
And then it comes back to, yes, you've got, like I think Niski will do well. Like the Gragas meta, as you say, I think Azari's grand. I think Oyoya will actually do really well this meta because it's like the Wukongs and all that kind of stuff.
Oyoya's also class. I think Oyoya's their best jungler.
But it's like, can I trust side lanes? I don't know 100%. And outside of Isaiah, I don't think Carzy's Aphelios is particularly good. I think
Aphelios is.
And then you're like, when you start to go back to looks,
it wasn't me.
That's Carzy coming back. That's old man Carzy, the wizard coming
he believes in, it just came out of nowhere. The original pitch for that video, by the way, there were 20 Carzys. We didn't have the time or the makeup artists, but there were like 30 different Carzys from like the multiverse were going to appear. Had to scope it back.
Is this where you bring in AI to just do AI Carzys that are all over the place?
ChatGPT wins the league.
There it is.
But this is the thing, right? I think when it comes down to it, I think Carzy's Zaya is class. But I think if I look towards his other picks, I'm not as hot with what's strong in the meta. And I just don't think they're able to match up toe to toe. I think we got Chasey going insane. Like Chasey's just nuts in playoffs, and I think that's what carried them. But when I actually look at them with this meta that we're coming into, I don't think Chasey can be the difference maker again.
Yeah, and I'm curious what this meta looks like for us, because again, Ahri Wukong was popular for so long, and I hold on to the fact that domestically 95% of Ahri Wukong games were just trash from LEC teams, and Adam played Sion in playoffs, and still we saw these answers coming in from Chasey. So maybe it'll be different, but if it is on paper as it appears to be in every region that's LCK, LPL, I'm inclined to agree. It feels very weird to leave BDS alone in S tier, but I think in the context of the meta we're coming into, they feel like the safest bet, the most reliable team to bet on.
I mean, the thing is,
you want to remove S and put everyone on these top 3 teams on A.
So the argument I'm going to say here is like, I think BDS and S tier makes sense, but I can see why it also doesn't make sense because, you look at G2 and Mad, they went to MSI, but domestically G2 were the 4th seed and BDS rolled everyone, finished first in the regular season and choked the finals. And who else did that? Rogue. And who did we put in S tier all the time? Teams like Rogue, like this team's going to destroy the regular season.
No,
and
you're
this
right.
is the thing. Like, I think BDS, it looks weird, but to be honest, domestically, they are, S tier.
I'm haunted with BDS by the fact that their playstyle was so one note. That's what hurts me. Is because I think that while BDS, their run was still incredible, specifically mid lane champion pool hurts, and specifically the way that Adam played top lane, while very successful, when he finally went up against Jay, who was going God mode, someone who was actually going to punish him, dropping every other wave, going mid all the time, it really fell apart. And teams watch that. Teams can learn from that. Do they have a caliber of top laner that can match that? A lot of teams don't. I think can't really punish that.
And on the one hand, if you say S tier, they're going to win the split. That's what you're basically saying in S tier. And on the other hand, you could say, well, BDS, it could be just a lucky run. Maybe they fall apart in summer and they finish like 3rd or 4th place and they're average. But if you look at spring, it's really hard to say that they're not going to be one of our best teams.
BDS, top 3 regular season, at least in the best of 1 stage, easy. And I think 13, is that what it is? Yeah.
13,
So many numbers. I accidentally watched a 12-11 patch review for an hour yesterday before I realized what was going on. I was like, there's another durability update. This feels completely incorrect. It was like 5 minutes. But
do you think we're overselling BDS? No, we're not. Right.
So I think the way I have it in my head is like, if I look at like percentages, as you say, for like top 3 or top 2, I'm like, I can see a world where Mad hit top 3, right? But I don't like, if I think about it, it's like, I am like 90% certain BDS are going to hit top 3.
Yeah, right? Which I don't have the same, like, I know G2 will make top 8. I know Mad will make top 8. I'm not convinced of any particular position they're going to end in. Whereas like BDS, which feels wild to me, feel like the safest bet of any team to perform, kind of like you highlighted with old Rogue. Like this is a team that they do their thing and they do it well. And if it gets exposed, they could immediately collapse. But outside of 1 series against Mad, no team in our league could stop them.
Yep.
And this is the conversation I used to have a lot with Lyric and Ox when we used to do tier lists in the LPL, is like, it depends on how you like rate the teams. Are you going to go with their baseline, this is what I expect from the teams? Or is it when you see the high highs? Because I was much more the guy of like, I'm going to play it safe. I think BDS are the team that have a very defined style. They can play it well. The meta suits them. I think their baseline average is going to be the highest.
Okay.
But then it depends on if you go, because Lyric would always go the opposite route where he was like, I am going for, and they hit the high highs and they hit that. That's what I think is the best team. So I think it depends on how you rank that.
So he was a top esports fan.
But I also...
he was. Well, he was a V5 guy.
I don't think you have to be consistent for every team because you don't have to believe in everything equally. And I think that's a lot of the context we've shared. You guys, for example, again, Heretics ending up in C tier is because you believe in that mid-jungle duo.
Yeah.
That is still not a guaranteed. That is still a thing that we need to see happen. And in the same way that, if you believed in Caps, if you really believe like, nah, it was a fluke, Caps coming back full strength, it would be very easy to put G2 in S tier.
Right. Cool. Right. One more team.
Vitality. B tier, man. I like Vitality. It's like, I can't keep talking about how good they are on paper.
I want to believe.
I
want to believe.
They're not a paper team.
No, they are. That's a problem. They are a paper team.
They are a paper team. The paper has looked good for a long damn time, and the paper has literally been wrong every time.
The thing is, superstars only get you so far. The amount of like times I've had hope and believed and said like, now we've got this signing, and now this signing,
someone
and
has
now this
falsely
signing.
attributed it to me, but I stole it from a YouTube comment, is Vitality you always place them 2 tiers higher than they belong, and they always finish 2 tiers lower than anyone expects. You know what I mean? Like,
it's kind of like, eventually, if you keep just signing superstars, maybe it'll work, but it just isn't working for the last 2 years.
What? No. Stop.
Manchester City. Well, I'm not very a big football guy, but all the tweets I see about Manchester City is like, look how much money they spent and now they won the league. It's like eventually you'll get there. Years of doing it, maybe one of them will click. But yeah, this Vitality roster,
and I believe that they will get better. Again, they have such a good roster, but I have no faith. If I completely believed in Vitality, they'd be an A tier. But I don't, and I don't think anybody should.
Yeah, I would put them in B, but above Astralis. I do think they're like a better team than Astralis. And that's where I would rate them, and I would teeter them between like, is this team better than the new version of Fnatic? Maybe I think Fnatic probably slightly better at the moment.
Fnatic going B.
Can you swap Vitality and Astralis around?
Yeah, you want. Where do you want? What? I don't understand what you think this says.
So
These aren't ordered, bro.
Oh, okay. I thought they were ordered of like this team, like closer to the letter means they're better.
Oh no, because then I have to put Heretics all the way over here because they barely scraped in to see, and I'm so happy to be wrong, but you guys fought for that with your lives, so I just have to keep calling it out. All right, gentlemen. S tier BDS, A tier G2 Mad Lions, B tier Astralis Vitality, C tier Koi Heretics, SK, D tier XL. There's one last order of business. Fnatic, currently teetering between A and B. You have to make a choice.
Why?
Why
can't we leave them in the middle?
You know,
I'm not inventing a B plus tier
A
for
minus.
Fnatic. Here's the thing we talked about
here's
earlier.
the thing.
It's do you believe?
Here's the thing.
I believe.
You believe.
Do you believe they're better than Vitality? I think that's the breaker for me.
Yes, I do. Do you believe they're better than Vitality?
But I don't believe in Vitality at all. That's why Vitality is B tier.
That's
That's
why.
the problem. Their players are so good, but I don't believe.
Are they upper echelon B tier plus?
I mean, if we were rating in order, I would be happy to put. No, I wouldn't. That's so bad, dude. This is so bad. I believe the problem is, I love Humanoid when Humanoid is good. I think he's so good. I think he but I just do I really
You're voting B?
I think upset in a meta where you get to just 2v2 the bot lane is going to absolutely destroy. And in that, if I'm rating Vitality or Fnatic, I'm like, I put Vitality ahead of Fnatic.
I agree. I put them in B.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Let's just. All right. Final tier list.
Yeah.
One more time for all of you in podcast.
And by the way, this
land.
is not like Astralis, for example, isn't better than Vitality and Fnatic in B tier.
It's
These
not
are just
ordered.
B tier. No order.
It's not ordered. Yeah, if you want the context of where they are, you hear it across this entire podcast. BDS is S tier, A tier, G2 Mad Lions, B tier, Astralis Vitality, Fnatic, C tier, Koi, Heretics, SK, D tier, XL. Pretty even spread.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
I like it.
Well, it worked out well.
Yeah.
That said, we're just gonna have to see. That's the thing about these tier lists. I have no doubt that we will look back at this
Yeah, of
in
course
3 weeks
and we'll be horribly
and
wrong.
feel like absolute idiots. But right
Heretics
now,
will win the split. SK will win the split. G2 will be last place. Like, you know, it's
I believe
The
this
classic.
tier list thoroughly. Mostly.
somewhat.
Somewhat.
Slightly. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for talking with me about the 10 teams today, for all of us talking together. Hope you guys enjoyed it. One last order of business is to talk about week 1 coming up. A lot of banger games. I'll just run through the schedule. It's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. The start time is 6 p.m. Berlin time. You have to convert that. Lolesports has a schedule. The wiki pages have a schedule. I can't convert that for you. I'm not good at that. Anyway, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, starting with Mad Vitality, Team Heretics XK. I'm not going to read the whole schedule. Banger games. Day 1, G2 BDS. Day 2, Mad G2 looking kind of fire. Day 3, Koi Mad Fnatic G2. What are you guys excited about?
I'm excited for Mad G2.
Yeah.
I'm just excited for that because G2 were like, if we beat Mad, we would have won the finals. And Mad were like, we beat you, shut up. So I'm excited to see that game.
That's true.
Yeah, I think for me, it's G2 BDS because I just want to see how both these teams match up. I think that's going to give us an answer to what BDS looks like. Yeah,
it's such a perfect start to what is a very stale meta because you have one team that benefits on paper so much from the meta remaining mostly the same, and then you have another team that will for sure try to play some whack shit, and I am ready for that.
I'm here for all the Astralis games too. Like, I'm ready for the cooking. I'm ready for Leader to just...
I just forget. Sometimes I forget that we still have Leader. This is the first, you know what I mean? Like, no offense to Leader, but he's usually here and then he's gone. And so I forgot. That's a good ass point. Yeah. Every Astralis game is kind of hype with new assassin itemization that was so overshadowed by AD carry itemization that we didn't even really talk about it.
They're going to first pick Zed and trade it for Zeri Yumi. That's what I want to see.
What? That's wrong on so many levels.
Move.
And if you want to hear more statements like that, you can check out Caedrel on the stream.
No, that's all my stream
co-streaming. That's not. No, I know it's not. Anyway, you're still co-streaming. We're all going to be on show this weekend. Check it out. LEC Week 1. This is the Summer Split. Reminder: Summer Split, 6 weeks. At the end of that, the top 6 teams will move on to our season finals, which ends in Montpellier. Occitania, I think. I have to say the whole thing. Anyway,
probably screwed up.
Which is going to be dope. I'm so excited to be back in France. So yeah, brace yourself. League of Legends, it's coming your way. It's coming hot and fast, fresh, delicious. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we'll be there. Thank you for watching. This has been EUphoria episode 14. We'll see you next week for episode 15.